proper, is it? Hey everybody, welcome to our part 3 of treating thoracic outlet syndrome in musicians. I'm Angela McHuston from Music Strong. I ran that together real fast. Angela McHuston from Music Strong. I'm joined with
Sandy Murphy at Star Physical Therapy, and we just kind of wanted to keep piggybacking on what we've already talked about before. So the first time we talked about what is thoracic outlet syndrome, we spoke about the 3 common places where you can get entrapment: up at the top in your neck in the scalenes, under the first rib, and in the pec minor. And then last time we spoke more specifically about, hey, how do we help out if it's in the scalenes or if it gets entrapped in the pec minor, the nerve we're talking about here. So today we want to talk about the rib area. And it's important just overall, in our overall health, to be able to know how to take good, deep, effective breaths for many reasons we'll talk about later, and especially musicians, to help you to be able to play better. So today what we'd like to talk about is first just look at how I would look at rib mobility and how I would look at a good breath in the clinic and how I maybe address that if there's a mobility issue. And then Angela's going to talk about, hey, how in the heck do I take a good deep breath? So let's first talk about, have you lay down here, and we'll just look at what a good breath looks like.
And for my wind players, this might be something different than you've heard before. Maybe not, but you know, not all musicians breathe to play, well, we all breathe to play an instrument, but you know, not all of us to play an instrument. So for drummers and violin players and cellists, this is also for you.
So the first thing that I look is just at gross rib symmetry. So I just start at the top and I palpate down the rib cage as you're taking a big deep breath. And here what I'm looking for is there equal rise right to left? Is there equal depression right to left? And then I'll take advantage of where the muscles attach on the ribs to see if, hey, if there's not good mobility, what can we do? What can we use to help restore normal mobility? Mm-hmm. So I'll start off just first right at the top, that first rib that we talked about. And I'll just ask Angela to take a big deep breath and back out. I'm just going to work my way down the rib cage, guys. And so I ask her to take a big deep breath again, back out, and then one more time. Good. And here again, I'm just looking for symmetry. And if we talk about like how a good deep breath happens, so the diaphragm is a smooth muscle that runs just at the bottom of your rib cage. So our lungs, that's a negative pressure system. So we're always trying to get air in. So as soon as the diaphragm contracts, it pulls down, and it's just easy for air to get pulled into your lungs. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of opposite of what you think. A lot of people feel like when their diaphragm contracts, that's when there's more work happening. Mm-hmm. So first, we can palpate around, right, and see if the diaphragm's tight, which is a lot of times not so comfortable. We're just kind of coming up under the ribs just a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that's a way that I could assess if there's a tightness there.
Or we've got any kind of restrictions. So the way that I like to explain what the diaphragm looks like, it's kind of like a cross between a parachute and a jellyfish. And it comes up and it bisects your body all the way around, and it comes up into your rib cage and goes all the way back. So when you breathe in, it's like a vacuum, kind of sucks your lungs down, shoves your guts out of the way, goes back the other way. So there should be mobility. If you've got any kind of restriction, that can translate into all kinds of problems.
And I'm glad that you brought up like how it kind of pushes into the gut a little bit, because that's another reason why it's very important to take a good deep breath for all of us. Every time you take a good breath, your internal organs are massaged a little bit. There's lots of small vessels on either side of your spine that get a little bit more movement that way. So it's good for all of us to take a deep breath. And a lot of times that's the first thing that we do when we get stressed is stop, and we get really, really tight. And that can play a big role just in overall pain and dysfunction as well. So a good thing to remember is make that part of your daily routine is just to stop and just take a deep breath. I mean, maybe it's once an hour, whatever's part of your routine, every time you wash your hands, go to the restroom, answer the phone, whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. So specifically in thoracic outlet, it's the upper ribs that we're looking at and good mobility there. So if, like, let's say that some of her upper ribs weren't moving very well, and we're trying to elevate her ribs. Some of the muscles that attach on those first ribs, we would want to take advantage of where they attach. So we would ask those muscles to contract, and that would pull the ribs up a little bit. So, like, if we were trying to do that for you, we would find the ribs in the back. I would palpate in the front so I could feel them moving, and I would ask Angela to turn her head to the left. She's going to take a great big breath in, hold or air and push your head up, and relax and let it out. And so that can be done with different muscle groups throughout the rib cage, depending on what's tight, to help restore normal mobility. Also with thoracic outlets, sometimes you'll hear people speak about the cervical rib, and that's just an extra rib up at the very, very top. So that would be even just way, way up here. And that's something, again, that we can work on restoring mobility. A lot of times the only way you know if you have that is through x-ray, or maybe a physician has told you in an exam. But if you want to talk more about how to take a good deep breath, now we kind of established what it looks like, how I would assess for it.
Right. So when it comes to breathing, something to think about is that, what we look like on stage is important. So we're very aware of our appearance, and culturally in the U.S., it's really everybody wants to have a flat stomach. So what that translates into is a lot of tension here, and sometimes we get shallower breathing. Depending on what instrument you play, you may or may not be breathing well. So when you breathe in, you want to breathe in through here. So what I tell my clients is, if you're lying flat on your back, you should feel the underneath your low back. You should feel your low back push slightly into the table, and you should feel like you're breathing through your belly button. Let all this go. It can be very vulnerable because you feel like, oh no, look, I look fat. Not necessarily. Camera angles. But also, feel how unrestricted it feels to let all of this go, right? So if you breathe in through your nose, let all of this inflate is what it should feel like. Do you feel the expansion here? So we talked about the diaphragm, when it comes down and it moves your guts a little bit this way, it gives your lungs space to move, right? So all of this should be moving. Your pelvic floor way down here also moves. So it's like, it goes like this. If anybody has taken Barbara Conable's class on what every musician needs to know about the body, you can actually see, oh, this will be fun to show. So if you lie on your back, hopefully you can see this. So when I breathe in, my spine should move. The head, you see my entire spine here moves. It's not like I'm only breathing up here. You don't breathe with your shoulders when you take in a deep breath. You breathe with your abdomen. But if you notice, it might be hard to see, but when I breathe in, my neck actually comes down, the spine shortens, and when you exhale, the spine lengthens. Now, if I breathe only here, you don't see as much because there's restriction. So if you're thinking about how to take in a good breath, and I'm sorry, I'm like in your way now, but if you're thinking about how to take a good breath, I want you to think, I'm going to breathe down through my feet. I'm going to breathe through my belly button. All those things will just let all that tension in your abdomen go, and you should have a great breath.
That sounds good. And to piggyback off that too, you can put your hands there and to have some kind of tactile cue, like she was demonstrating, to lay on the pillow. Have your hands here. Anything where you can feel your lower ribs coming out into your hands. But that's it for good deep breathing. So if you have any questions for us, just like normal, you can email me at sandy.murphy@starpt.com. And best way to contact you?
Y'all can find me anywhere. musicstrong.com, Angela@musicstrong.com. I'm on all the socials at musicstrong, everything. But we work together. So if you are a musician with thoracic outlet syndrome or something going on and you want to be fit for the stage, give one of us a call and we will get you back to where you need to be. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.